Call the Spark City Council meeting of November 9th, 2015 to order with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini?
Here.
Council members Ratty?
Here.
Lawson?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Bybee?
Here.
Schmidt? Absent. And Acting City Attorney Eiding?
Here.
And City Manager Driscoll?
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, would you all stand for the invocation, please? We have Richard Evans, Richard Evans, President of the Reno Free Thinkers. Richard?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present my secular insights into this meeting through an invocation. Again, my name is Richard Evans. I'm the president of the Reno Free Thinkers Group. It's a 501c3 Nevada corporation. I'm also a Sparks resident. Since I'm doing today's invocation, otherwise known as a prayer, I would like to take a moment to clarify my religious beliefs. By the way, if anybody decides they want to sit down, feel free to. It won't bother me a bit. Okay? My religious beliefs are that I have none. With this in mind, I nevertheless will be taking this opportunity to satisfy the assumed majority Christian faction in this room by finishing with invoking biblical scripture, a passage which I personally fully support and would hope and expect Judeo-Christians to do the same. But before I get to this, I'd like to point out that today is one of my personal heroes, Professor Carl Sagan, noted astronomer, astrophysicist, author, poet, died in 1996. From his 1980s Cosmos series, I offer an excerpt from his own series. This is a reference to Earth and the cosmic sea. The significance of our lives and our fragile planet is then determined only by our own wisdom and courage. We are the custodians of life's meaning. We long for a parent to care for us, to forgive us our errors, to save us from our childish mistakes. But now it's better by far to embrace the hard truth than a reassuring fable. If we crave some cosmic purpose, then let us find ourselves where we were. Carl Sagan, A Life Well Spent, now ceased to exist. I'd like to finish with a reading from Matthew 6. This passage immediately precedes probably the most well-known biblical Christian prayer, the Lord's Prayer. Beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them, for then you will have no reward from your Father who is in heaven. And when you pray, you must not be hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, that they may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. Would you remain standing now for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Mr. Lawson, would you lead us?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops. Yikes. Okay, next is number 4, public comment. If you want to talk under public comment, under anything that you want to talk about, you can talk now. You have 3 minutes. That's about it. You need to fill out one of these cards. Some of you may be here to talk about 9.4, so you can wait and talk about that at that time if you would like. So, Dale Lowry. Come on up, Dale. Followed by Brian Reeder. Yes, make sure the, yeah, there you go, Dale, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, Spark City Council. My name is Dale Lowry, and I am against doing away with 9.4. A lot of people will say this is a union versus non-union issue. It's not. It's an industry issue. From the standpoint of plumbers and electricians are in a field where they require much more education than any other construction trade out there. Code books are very thick. In most cases, it takes 4 years to learn both codes. And in the apprenticeship programs, the programs are set up on a 4-year program. I'm a non-union plumbing contractor. I also wear the hat of the chairman of the Nevada Board of Plumbing Examiners. The Nevada Board of Plumbing Examiners was set up to regulate within the state the licensing of plumbers, both north and south, so that we could maintain the issuing of cards every 3 years to those who went out and took the exam and qualified for testing. The code does change every 3 years, and it requires those people to re-up, so we require continuing education to re-up your card every 3 years. Again, this isn't a union versus non-union issue. The members on the Nevada Board of Plumbing Examiners consist of D&D Plumbing, who I represent, Savage and Son Plumbing, a representative of the City Council or the City of Reno Building Department, Washoe County Building Department sits on that board, the Local 350, which is the plumber and pipe fitters, and we have the local in Southern Nevada. We have the building departments in Clark County, and we have the Plumbing and Heating Cooling Contractors Association, which is a non-union organization in Southern Nevada, also sits on that board, and Local 525, the pipe fitters in Southern Nevada. So it's made up of, and then we also have those in the swimming pool organization down there in Southern Nevada. So it's made up of a large group of people. So we respect the idea that plumbers should be licensed. We know that the city of Reno has been doing this licensing for quite some time, and you've probably heard the controversy of maintaining and keeping that ordinance in existence over there. But with that said, the Nevada Board of Plumbing Examiners was set up to do all of that testing, and eventually will probably be statewide requirement, just like every other state around us requires all plumbers and all electricians to be licensed. This isn't something new. This is not, we don't want to take a step back just because we're getting busy all of a sudden, and now we want to lower the bar. So at any rate, is that my time is up? Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini, City Council members, City Manager Driscoll. My name is Brian Reeder. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Associated Mechanical Contractors and the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors. And I also want to provide public comment in opposition to item 9.4, just in case I'm not actually able to be present when that comes up. We believe there is value in Sparks Municipal Code Title 15 certification requirements for plumbers and electricians. Title 15 gives the city of Sparks the ability to ensure that plumbing and electrical work, which can be very dangerous if you do not know what you're doing, is done properly, and the people performing that work have knowledge of the appropriate code. And also, when a plumber shows up to your house to install or make repairs to your sewer or gas lines, we believe it's important for the homeowner to have some assurance that that plumber will perform the work properly and leave the residents under safe conditions. We understand that this section of code has not been enforced, applied in several years. We don't, however, believe that's a good reason to get rid of it. Sometimes we get rid of laws or codes and regret doing so later on. This section of code gives the city another tool to ensure good workmanship. If a housing development is being built and new homeowners discover problems with the plumbing, the gas, the electrical, stuff that should have been avoided, the city has the ability currently, the way the code is, to go to that contractor and find out if the employees he used were actually qualified to do that work. So we ask that you consider leaving this section of code as is, and thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Richard Evans. Alrighty then.
start here. Okay, thank you. I'm here today in hopes that you'll consider what you're doing by officially promoting a prayer service at and during a government function. Let me be clear on this. I'm not here trying to take anyone's right away to pray or believe in whatever they wish. If anyone at any time wishes to personally pray, whether it is here in this room, during an assembly, or prior to an assembly, not only do I support them in doing so, there is actually nothing anyone can do to stop it. While I do not think it would be prudent for a council member to go in meditative prayer during a council meeting, no one can stop them from doing it. Once prayer becomes part of the official session, this is when it becomes a problem. Invocation by dictionary definition is a prayer to a deity. By the Sparks City government sanctioning a prayer service before each opening session, you are unconstitutionally promoting a religious ideal. The idea of the existence of a God. We are a secularly governed nation, not a theocracy. Let's consider our Constitution. The only mention of religion in the Constitution is in the reference to the date of the document, in the year of our Lord, 1787, a common expression easily dismissed as customary and traditional. Not only is religion and God not mentioned in the Constitution by these many deeply religious Christian founders, it appears they intentionally left religion out of it. Surely they discussed it, yet these deeply religious founders created a totally secular document. The only two mentions of religion in the Constitution are freedom of religion, which I hope you will all agree includes the freedom to not have a religion, and no religious test shall be required to hold government office. Two liberties intended to have no religion. That's it. The Declaration of Independence was drafted 10 years prior to the Constitution. It talks about a creator once, and it is not law. The First Amendment has two provisions concerning religion, the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. The Establishment Clause prohibits the government from establishing a religion. Today, what constitutes an establishment of religion is often governed by the three-part test set forth in 1971 by the U.S. Supreme Court in Lemon v. Kurtzman. Under the Lemon test, government can assist religion only if the primary purpose of the assistance is secular, the assistance must neither promote nor inhibit religion, and there is no excessive entanglement between church and state. The protection, I'm going to jump ahead. Imagine a day if America became predominantly Muslim. 51% of the people decided it's a good idea to spread out their carpets, kneel on the floor, and face east while chanting for 2 minutes. How would that make you feel? Well, it may give you an inkling of how it makes a secular person feel when in a government session, personal belief in a deity is paraded out onto the public square and treated as if that is the correct way of thinking. And if you think differently, you must be lesser, summarily dismissing another citizen's non-belief. By giving one form of belief the benefit of government-sponsored promotion, you are wholly discriminating on another's individual worldview. It is my hope and wish here that one of you or more of you here on this to the council will have the courage to make a motion to end this practice of a prayer service prior to a council meeting. Even a moment's silence would be preferable and would not be discriminatory.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ardina Perry?
For the record, Ardina Perry. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? My allergies are bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And thank God we have freedom from freedom from religion's not written in there anywhere. It's freedom of. So thank goodness for that. I'm here today to discuss the commercial animal establishment welfare permit. This was originally brought before the Sparks City Council May 26th of this year. At that time, Councilmember Schmidt asked about the impact and the licensing and how this interaction between Washoe County's ability to determine a business's right to function would interfere with our ability as a city to license that business. I'm so sorry, the commercial, actually for those that don't have a copy of it, the commercial animal establishment definition is any pet store, kennel, or boarding facility used for the business of buying, selling, or boarding animals. And the definition of an animal, both county and state, is any living being that is not human. So that's a pretty broad category. Therefore, when a nursery, feed store, pond, bait shop sell live animals, They meet the legal criteria of 55-455 and fall under this code, becoming a pet store through the sale of live animals. If selling cars is a regular part of my business, I by default become a car dealer, okay? And I need a permit to do that if it's a regular part of my business. So I've been in touch with the people at Petco and PetSmart. They were a little surprised to find out that they might have to come under the Washoe County Commercial Animal Permit, and just another whole layer of governance. The law was not well written. It's the same law that we questioned and criticized before. It's been kicked out twice by the Washoe County Board of Commissions. It's back before the County Commission tomorrow with 2 lines removed. Now, an inside source of mine in Reno and Washoe County assured me that the county's intention is to put the procurement language back in to the ordinance or to go for an outright ban on pet stores. Sparks needs to decide if that's really something we want to do. Mr. Schneider, that they're trying their best to put out of business right now, has an interest in opening a pet store in Sparks. We're either going to be a business-friendly community or we're not. And this isn't a criminal activity. It's not an illegal activity. It's a place where they're pushing their morals and their values onto a business. And I'm not sure that's where the city needs to go. So, try to wrap this up in the law. The law is what you write, not what you mean. As written, this law would include Petco, PetSmart, horse boarding facilities, which would, by this law, be required to pave the barn, and should they move the horses from the north pasture to the south pasture, apply for a new welfare permit. Okay, think about that. If PetSmart in the Galleria does not apply for their permit and get approved by Washoe County, that then impacts the city of Sparks. That's all I need to say. I sent you all the rest of it.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Yep, have a great day. I'm going to drive home before the snow.
Anyone else under public comment? Okay.
Since I know that ordinance is coming up tomorrow, is there any way we have the city attorney's office gives us, because we had the discussion here at the council table about it, the impacting the city of Sparks. They could review the changes and see if the city attorney still feels the same way about that ordinance.
Mr. Smith, I'm not prepared to have that discussion.
Not now.
I didn't know.
No, if
Yeah.
you just get it out to us so we know what if the city attorney's position has changed on that ordinance.
Will do, sir.
All right, thank you. And if I could, Mr. Mayor, the previous speaker, brought up an awful lot of things with the Constitution and everything. Just an article came out the other day that there is now a city outside of Detroit that is promoting 5 times a day religious prayers over loudspeakers throughout the city. It's sanctioned, so it does seem to be some case history out there, city-supported prayers going on. So I want to pass that along.
Which one is this for? 94? Okay. All right, we do have one more for public comment, I believe. It's not true that he had to use Google Maps to figure out where the Sparks City Council was. That's not true. He's a pretty intelligent gentleman. It's our Congressman, Mr. Mark Amodei. Welcome, Congressman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was here on time. I was just caught by the striking art display in the lobby outside next to the men's room, and so it slowed me down a little bit. But I have regained my composure, and thank you for your patience, City Council members. For your record, Mark Amodei, representing Nevada's Congressional District Number 2. A fact about Congressional District Number 2 that I like to remind the people who hold the seats for the other 3 districts is that it is Nevada's original congressional district. Thank you for a little bit of patience and allowing me to kind of bump in on your public comment section of your agenda today. I wanted to kind of touch bases with you on some things and be more in the receive mode rather than the send mode, but wanted to update you on a few things. And as I showed up, I was handed the 2015-16 federal framework for the city of Sparks, so I think I'll just touch on a couple things in there in the way of update, and then we can go from there. The first thing I wanted to mention, Your Honor, is that you had taken the time to go ahead and contact our office earlier in the year about the importance of CDBG program to the city of Sparks and how you supported it. And I wanted to report back that in the THUD appropriation in the House, that the administration's recommended level was about $2.8 billion. And we ended up passing that out as a result of work across the country and the recognition of the importance of the program to communities like Sparks, but throughout the nation, at about $200 million more than that. So hopefully there won't be a lot of violence done to that in the omnibus process, which is taking place between now and December 11th. I also see in here that you folks were talking about, and we had spoken about the cemetery and the need for a facility like that for the city of Sparks, because it doesn't have one, and things had been kind of chugging along nicely, and there had been land identified for disposal through the BLM district in Carson, and then lo and behold comes the famous sage hen chickens for some of us that have been around for a while. If you're from the East Coast, you refer to it as the sage grouse. Kind of like saying Nevada in my mind, but anyhow, the folks in the Carson District Office have kind of taken a cautious view because it's identified as sage hen habitat. Now, I know that there aren't any wildlife biologists on the Sparks City Council, but I can assure you that the initial map was done in the way you start on all mapping, which is you create a computer model, you cross-reference it with USGS baseline data, and you come up with a start. That start has identified many areas that are in urban-rural interface, pinyon juniper, things like that, which are clearly not sage hen habitat. There is an update being done on that through USGS. The challenge will be getting the Bureau of Land Management in their infinite land management wisdom to accept the latest draft of that map from the USGS, which should get rid of a lot of the urban-rural interface problems to avoid situations like school district requested property in northern Washoe County, which is sage hen habitat, the bottom of the Coeur-Rochester pit in Pershing County, which is sage hen habitat, the town of Eureka, Nevada, for those of you who travel east on US 50, which is sage hen habitat, a site that the Reno Rodeo has selected for potentially moving their operation to, although we asked them why they didn't want to move it to someplace adjacent to Sparks. They said it was something to do with the name Reno Rodeo as opposed to Sparks Rodeo, but maybe the Rotary Club here can handle that or something like that. Anyhow, we will stay updated. We will keep you updated on keeping that stuff moving, where hopefully it doesn't require an act of the United States Congress, since those things on the timeline are not the fastest things known to man, woman, child, or beast lately. I will tell you that in this appropriations process between now and December 11th, when an omnibus bill is written to fund, not only through September of next year, but the following year, that there is serious discussion underway right now to make major changes to the Department of Interior's Sage Hen celebration that was held in December about 30 days ago. And that would be aimed at letting states and their plans have more control over mapping and administration of the habitat for that particular species. Remember, it's not numbers or population, it's habitat loss and fragmentation. So it's acres, not feathers. Marketplace Fairness Act you have mentioned. I've been a supporter of that, continue to be a supporter of that. I have spoken with Jason Chaffetz, who is one of the major House sponsors, and there is new work to be done on that, since apparently our newly minted Speaker, Mr. Ryan, believes that it's a tax. I will just leave it with the fact that I respectfully disagree with the Speaker, and we'll keep you updated on how that's going. In the transportation issue, we passed last week what I will refer to, compared to the series of 90-day, 180-day extensions on the transportation bill, which basically do nobody any good, as Mr. Driscoll and his folks and the folks at the Department of Transportation at the state level and your RTC folks know. You don't plan for major infrastructure in a transportation sense in a 30, 60, 90, 180-day sense. Right now, the bill that was passed last year is 6 years, which is about a cycle and a half. Would have liked to have seen 10 years, but a cycle and a half compared to 6 months is a step in the right direction. There's a problem in my mind, with the pay-fors, and so we'll see how that works out with the Senate, but at least we're out of the 90-day, 180-day extensions, which basically do nobody any good in terms of master planning and actually filling out transportation infrastructure, which, as we all know, Northern Nevada is in pretty serious need of. The final thing I'm going to bring up, and then if there's any questions or areas that Your Honor or any of the council members want to cover, is Interstate 11. Because we've, even though Northern Nevada isn't on anybody's immediate radar screen, if you will, we think it's an important opportunity to set that right away, even though it's a ways out there, so people, jurisdictions, all of the above can go ahead and plan accordingly for that. I can tell you that we've been involved pretty heavily with Chairman Schuster and the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and also the State Department of Transportation in looking at a route once you get north of Las Vegas. I think the preliminary NDOT route pretty much says, no disrespect to the folks in Ely and Caliente, but we're going to be going a little bit west of there. And accordingly, we have taken a look at the environmental and land ownership issues going on a traditional, I think it's, what is it, 93, 95 that goes through Hawthorne, and said, you know what, maybe you ought to take a good look at the Gabbs pole line road alignment, because there's a lack of topography of any significant sort. It's all federal ownership. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do around the west side of Walker Lake. The east side of Walker Lake is sovereign nation in terms of the Schurz Paiute Indian Reservation. You end up coming out at Fallon anyhow, and what we think one of the things to benefit Fallon is you've got the Reno Highway, which comes out on Interstate 80 at Fernley, and if you really want to go that north-south thing, then you take the Lovelock Highway, you tie in Interstate 80, and you go north out of Winnemucca, which is kind of the whole idea between 11. We have briefed that concept to your counterparts on the Washoe County Commission. We have not briefed your counterparts on the Reno City Council, but we'll do so. I bring it up at this time, though, because I expect, even though they're not directly related, I expect that Chairman Upton and Subcommittee Chairman Shimkus will move a Yucca Mountain bill for Nevada this year in the House. Not that anybody expects that to pass the Senate. Nobody thinks that the Senate's going to pass a Yucca Mountain bill in the last session of the Congress with Senator Reid there. But, and not that anybody should leave the room saying Amadei's in favor of Yucca Mountain. I don't think anybody in Nevada wants a nuclear landfill in Nevada. But if it turns out to be 49-1 in terms of states, and there's an interesting thing about Yucca Mountain. Right now it's owned by the Bureau of Land Management. So if you do a Yucca Mountain bill and you have to transfer land from the Bureau of Land Management to the Department of Energy for Yucca Mountain, that means you're going to have to do land transfer language in that bill. And if they do that, it is my intention, if there are other pieces in there, utilizing Desert Research Institute for monitoring, economic development pieces north and south, a myriad of other things, but the fact that there is a required land transfer in there is something that we intend to explore fully, to have included in there I-11 right away through all the states, get you away from the earmark process, any other federal land transfers that make sense in that context in terms of having to do a standalone lands bill, which, as we all know from the recent experience with the Arrington lands bill, was a bill that nobody objected to, nobody opposed, and it took a crisp 6 years to get it done start to finish. And that's with full efforts, all hands on deck. So I think there will be, there may be an opportunity, if that starts to happen in terms of land transfers. If there is, we will be getting a hold of Mr. Driscoll and his staff and you folks to say, what else is going on in there that's potential? Obviously, there's checkerboard along Interstate 80 and stuff like that. So I don't want people to start opening up the doors on the firehouse and rolling the engines, but might be a good idea just to be going. If that happens, maybe we need to be a step or two down the road to see what happens. Bottom line, if that happens this year, what it will do is lay a foundation for when that bill comes forward in the 115th Congress, things like that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, plenty of other stuff going on. If there's anything that's on your mind or anybody else's mind, I'd be happy to respond to that, or requests that we need to get back to you on, or ones that you don't think we've gotten back to you on, where we need to renew that. Open season, Your Honor. Thank you.
Questions for Congressman Amadei? Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Congressman, for being here today, and I appreciate your efforts on the cemetery. And we all know BLM says they want to get rid of land, but trying to get it from them is a whole different ball game.
Takes 50 years is all.
Yeah, we won't be here when that cemetery is ready to be built. One of the important things is I-11. It's not only a transportation corridor, it's a utility corridor. And I have asked no less than 4 times from NDOT, we need to establish the route, just for the things you were saying about establish the right-of-way, so we don't have to worry about purchasing land after somebody's built a building on it and things like that. The answer is it's way too soon. I think it's better to do it sooner than later and get it out of the way. So I appreciate your support on that, because that's a big deal. Most people don't know what I-11 even is. So,
well, and actually, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Supervisor Smith, I think having that set, I'm not going to preach to the choir, but the fact that you've committed to it, the fact that there's construction going on in Arizona, the fact that Nevada has already dedicated money to the bridge across the Colorado, so you're not driving across the top of the dam. Obviously, there's a big push to get it between the Valley of the Sun and Las Vegas right now. And I don't envy them the issue of how the heck you get around Las Vegas, but they'll figure that out. But when you get north of Las Vegas, then that's a big deal for the rest of the state.
Right.
And while NDOT has established a preliminary route that is very, very broad in nature, the only question that it really answers so far is that it's not going to be going through Ely, Wells, and Caliente. Okay, we get that. So now that you're talking about being in basically our wheelhouse in western Nevada and northern Nevada, what makes the most sense in terms of topography, construction costs, environmental issues, all those sorts of things. And so we're, quite frankly, advocating very strongly for the Gabbs Pole Line Road route. Now, the folks at Middlegate are probably not happy about that, since they won't have quite as quiet a little place when that comes through there. But I think you also hit the nail right on the head in terms of, listen, they're not going to be out there dropping blades and blading rough right away anytime in the next 20 years. But nonetheless, it does give people a chance to go out and see what's going on and plan accordingly in the Fallons of the world, the Fernleys, how that comes through the Truckee Meadows and things like that. We'll continue to keep you updated on that, because it's our goal. You got to chop the wood in front of you, and the first thing you got to have is a route. And the second thing you got to have is the right-of-way on that route. And we think that right-of-way choice, especially if you get a chance to actually transfer right-of-way, takes care of a lot of planning problems so people know where it is. Unless, of course, there's something unforeseen in that route that's a deal breaker.
Great.
thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Bybee?
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for being here today. Just wanted to thank you not only for coming to see us here in Sparks, but for representing all of us here in Nevada, being our voice back in Washington, D.C. I think you're doing an amazing job, and just wanted to thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the kind words. They're kind of few and far between in this business these days. But I also want to extend that back. I mean, we had a Veterans Town Hall meeting here that you folks were nice enough to allow us to host that went very well. Had the regional person from Phoenix in on that, on working since we've got Veterans Day coming up here in another 48 hours, those sorts of things. I also wanted to let you know, in terms of my dress here today, it is my hope that if you dress like it is going to rain in the valleys and snow in the mountains, that perhaps it will. So we'll see if it does any good. But thank you very much.
Anyone else comments? Congressman, thank you so much. The Google Maps joke, and you know where Sparks is. In fact, you buy all your used cars here, right? Yeah, I knew you did. So, I really appreciate your candidness, and you don't pull any punches. You don't BS us. We ask, you say yes or no. We know exactly where you stand. God dang it, I love it. So,
thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Really, it's so refreshing to be able to call you and say, Congressman, what do you think? And you tell us what you think, and we don't get any BS. I love it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and reminding me about my last used car purchase from a mainstream lot on Prater Way in Sparks. I want you to know that I am supposed to go to Fallon tomorrow afternoon and see how the restoration of that is going. And while it was a great deal in Sparks for about $2,000, it's nothing that about $20,000 later couldn't fix up into something that I will be proud to drive down the street. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thanks, Congressman. Appreciate it. Okay, agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion for agenda is outlined.
A second, Ms. Bybee.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilwoman Bybee to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further questions? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Minutes, consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the Sparks City Council workshop of October 12th, 2015, and the regular Sparks City Council meeting of October 26th, 2015. Any questions, deletions, or additions? Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve.
Mr. Schmidt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lawson, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the minutes of the workshop of October 12th and the regular city council meeting of October 26th. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, 7.7, we have announcements, presentations, recognition items. Proclamation, Family Caregivers Month. Do we have someone here to receive this? Okay, I'm going to have Mr. Smith read it, and then we'll get it to those folks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas family caregivers play an increasingly important role in the well-being of loved ones, providing unpaid assistance with both healthcare tasks and activities of daily living, and more than a third of Nevadans over the age of 50 currently provide care for a parent, spouse, disabled child, or other relative or friend. And whereas more than 500,000 family caregivers in Nevada provide unpaid assistance equivalent to 348 million hours and an estimated value of $4 billion each year, and whereas the proportion of Nevada's population that is over 60 is growing more rapidly than other components, and the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that about 24% of Nevadans will be over the age of 60 by 2030, and whereas older adults who receive cost-effective services at home are more likely to continue to live independently in communities without needing nursing home care or utilizing public assistance, and whereas to successfully address the surging population of older adults and others with significant needs for long-term services and supports, we must develop methods to encourage and support Nevada's family caregivers while developing ways to recruit and retain a qualified, responsive in-home care workforce. And whereas the City of Sparks supports and applauds the dedicated work of family caregivers and recognizes caregiving for older, vulnerable, or disabled veterans as a vital and needed profession today and in the future. Now, therefore, Gino R. Martini, Mayor of the City of Sparks, Nevada, do hereby proclaim November 2015 as Family Caregivers Month.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed there's no one here to accept this, but family caregivers are so important. I remember when my mom took care of my dad when he was on the way down. So, very good chance that somebody in here, or more than somebody in here, is going to be a caregiver for their parents or their spouse. So, this is great stuff, and it's wonderful that people are willing to step up and do this because it's expensive if you have to buy it, and if you can do it family-wise, it's really good stuff. So thank you for all, and there might be some here that are doing it right now. So if you do it, if you're out there, thank you. It's very important. Thanks. Next is introduction to RAD strategies and briefing on the comprehensive plan update. Okay, come on down.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini and Council. I'm Karen Malby, Senior Planner. Today, I wanted to introduce you to our consultant that we've hired for the public outreach. As you're well aware, we have started updating our comprehensive plan, and the first step in doing that is our public outreach. We feel that it's really important that our comp plan represents what the community feels, and the only way to do that is to get input from the community. So I wanted to introduce you to the consultants that we've hired, and they're here to make a presentation for you.
Welcome. If you could give us your names for the record, please.
Of course. My name's Allison Bolton. And I'm Karen Craig. Thank you, Mayor Martini and City Council for having us today. Again, I'm Allison Bolton. I'm with RAD Strategies. I handle a lot of the client day-to-day communication as well as media outreach, social media, so forth, things like that. We have teamed up with Ms. Karen Craig here from Creative Cities to really bring you a dynamic team really encompassing what we're doing for Ignite Sparks. Now, just a little bit about RAD. We are a communications firm. We really mark ourselves on being innovative, being ahead of the curve. We're kind of those technology geeks that you meet at a cocktail party and they say, hey, have you heard about X, Y, and Z? And you go, I don't even know what they're talking about. And 3 months later, that's all you can hear. So really our job is to know those things before they become popular and to be on the forefront of those things. And then Ms. Karen, do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
I like being on the forefront on the ground. So my job isn't so much the communicator as it is the community engager. I really enjoy getting people to fall in love with the place they live, fall in love with their neighbors around them, fall in love with the community. My background, I'm a resident of Reno versus our partners at RAD who are all raised and grown in Sparks. I live in Reno and I did a project there, Art Town. I started about 20 years ago, but it's a really good example about how to get the community to sort of see a vision, buy in a vision, and propose something that has long-ranging effects.
Yeah, thank you. You know, we need to see a vision from what we call over there the dark side. So it's good. It's good to see what's going on over there.
I like.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's tell you what we have planned. We're working. This is your plan. We're working closely with staff. Armando, Karen, Jim, and Adam have been terrific. And we've been updating. We've been twice to the Planning Commission, and this is our first time to be able to share with you what we're doing. So our outreach plan is to engage the residents of Sparks to talk about what their hopes are, what they'd like to see happen by the year 2030. This will guide your planning department to creating a policy that'll support the comprehensive plan. Your plan outreach is going to be inclusive. It'll generate wide community engagement. It'll encourage representation of the underrepresented. We'll talk about that in greater detail. We're going to be transparent. We're going to be interactive and fun, which is what RAD is so fabulous with. And it's a very fast-paced program.
This is really just a general outline of what the plan looks like. So we were hired on in October, and now we've hit November, December, which is our Vision Phase 1 survey stage, which is really kind of painting the picture, getting the full scope of what we're doing and getting just kind of diving in a little bit. And then in January, we'll be evaluating our efforts the last 2 months and really diving deeper. And this is what we call our boots on the ground phase. And then summer and fall is where we'll be actually drafting the plan and then implementing and hopefully adopting in the fall of 2016.
So we're here in the vision phase. What do people want to see for Sparks between now and the year 2030? We have a number of initiatives that are underway, about maybe 10 public meetings, starting with Planning Commission. We're here today. We're at 39 North tomorrow. We're meeting with internal staff on Thursday. Next week, we're convening a group of champions. And let me define what a planned champion is for you. Everybody knows a stakeholder. Stakeholders have a vested interest in what happens here. Champions are the people who ignite passion in their community. They have a killer Rolodex or speed dial, and they love ideas, and when they hear something good, they want to share it with people they know. So we've identified about 20 to 30 champions, many at the community level, at faith-based level, UNR's Department of Cultural Diversity, Latino community, LGBT, homeowners associations, and we're reaching out. We're going to follow up now that you've met us in person with you to see if you can suggest one or more champions from each of your wards that would be part of this committee. We're going to be convening them for the first time next week on the 17th. It'll be the first chance we have with the advertorial running that Adam is preparing for the Reno Gazette-Journal. And then we'll start becoming public, and we'll engage the champions to start helping us engage their communities and getting their input. The next big event on the schedule would be a big presence at the Hometown Parade. We're going to have a booth, or we're not the booth, we're the gazebo. And we encourage, if you'd like to join us at any point or all before the parade starts, we're going to be taking about 400 surveys. We'll have survey takers there conducting surveys in English and Spanish. And we would love if you would like to talk to a few or spend the time with us to talk to constituents. We're going to be there in force.
Now, in terms of the communication tools that we're using during this phase one, we're developing a microsite which will actually host this online survey that we've been referencing. The site will be launching November 15th. We're just in the finishing stages of that. We're also going to be doing social media integration, which Sparks in and of itself already has an audience there. You have a presence on social media. So what we're doing is we're taking this plan and we're implementing it within the current channels that you already have. Media relations and outreach will be on an ongoing basis, but it's really kicking off during this first stage. E-news distributions will start after the Hometown Christmas Parade, and then, again, one-on-one interactions, as Karen discussed with our meetings and things that we're going to.
Mm-hmm. So as we roll into the beginning of 2016, we'll start with Ignite Sparks. You're good at describing hashtags, so go for it, Carol.
So what is a hashtag? Our last meeting that we're at, I actually gave a picture of what that is, because it's kind of this ambiguous thing that not a lot of people understand what it is. All it is it's a way to categorize information and put it into one bucket. So hashtag Ignite Sparks is not only a way for us to garner social engagement and presence on those social media channels, but it's a way for us also to organize and monitor that and see really where people are talking. And so all of the messages within Ignite Sparks will be in this one bucket, so we're able to monitor that. And then the Ignite Sparks NV, that is the URL for the microsite that we are launching November 15th.
So now that I know what a hashtag is, in 2016, we'll be starting with the deeper dive phase of the survey. What we're doing is, in this first phase, we're listening to what your constituents are saying that they hope for, they fear, and what they would like to be in the year 2030. From that information, we'll filter that down and then be asking some really good deep dive questions in the first quarter of 2016. We'll be working through the champions that I just mentioned to get out into the community and talk to their networks. We'll be doing boots on the ground, and we'll have a good graphic for you here in a minute to describe what that looks like. Lots of strategies to engage people. And I think the biggest difference about the plan that we've put together for you is that instead of having a meeting and hoping that people come find us, our plan is let's go touch people. Let's go ask them, listen, be where they are in the hours that they work, at lunch, after dinner. Don't expect them to come necessarily to a public gathering. Let's see if we can really find people when in their space, when they have the time and when they're able to engage with us.
And the tools here, again, they're a lot more interactive. They're boots on the ground. We're getting on bus tours. We're getting student involvement, churches, the chamber. We're also going to be utilizing instant polling. So as we're going to these various groups, we'll have instant results while we're there. And then also using our mobile app that we've already developed with the City of Sparks.
Okay, so let's describe more a little bit about boots on the ground. You'll have a better sense of what we're after. Each of the wards has a bit of a high point focus. So, for example, glasses for me. In Ward 2, we want to be out in the heavy trafficked areas, mostly listening for things about transportation, but other elements that come in heavily transport areas. Quality of life, be in the wards, be it parks, be it games, be it sporting events. Food truck surveys. We want to be out in neighborhoods when people are on their lunch break, asking them what they think, and doing that through having kind of a place to convene and be able to survey people at lunch. We're going to be at the El Rancho flea market, talking to people, again, bilingual, asking survey questions, asking for input, asking families to describe what's working for them, what's not working for them, and really coming up with what would lead to important policy that you could pass. And then lastly, get into meeting the industrial neighborhood, especially in looking at that EPIC forecast, which we're all trying to see if that's coming true. There's going to be a lot of pressure in the industrial areas about what that's going to feel like and look like. A lot of residential pressures in suburban Sparks. So we want to kind of match what the new forecasts are to what your constituents, how they'd like the city to react to that and make this still their place of choice to live and work and play.
This is really just an example of what it looks like integrated into your current channels. We have here the infographic that we've been working on, and this will kind of be, it's like your email signature. It's going to be everywhere. We're using it in all of our communication tools, from the e-blast distribution to our media outreach and so forth. It'll be everywhere. And then again, as mentioned before, City of Sparks has a great online presence socially, so we're using those channels, using those networks, using those audiences, and integrating the Ignite Sparks within it. So this is just kind of a visual depiction of what that actually looks like.
Okay, so a moment ago we described the thought of using champions to get out and network in the community. Let's talk about who we're really focusing on. We want to make sure that we get a very targeted, about 2,500 surveys responded to during this 4 or 5 month process. Of that, we want to mirror the demographics of Sparks very closely. Number one, we want to make sure that we're equally talking to people in all 5 wards. We're going to go back to that again and again and again to make sure that we've connected with your constituents. We want to know that we're in the right age brackets. Are we talking to people who are right now your largest bracket, which is 35 to 50? And we want to make sure that we're talking to about 25% of all these respondents where English is either their second language. You have 17% of people in Sparks who are born in another country. Let's listen from them about what they see. Try to do it in the language that they best want to tell us in, and look forward to their visions. So that's why we're really relying on this champion approach. And again, if you can be thinking between when we leave you today and when we follow up with you in the next week, if there are people who are champions from your ward that just know how to think beyond the problem of the week, get themselves into a further horizon, and have that incredible, they have 100 friends on their phone that they can speed dial in 2 seconds, that's the kind of person we're looking for. It's different than a stakeholder that we'll talk about in a minute. Stakeholders. We know them, we love them, and we know that often we have to go to them also. Besides the obvious business stakeholders in the community, industrial stakeholders, realtors, you'll notice that we're going to go both groups inside Sparks, but also the partners who you have to work with, because many people responding to surveys, as you know, don't understand the difference that you don't govern the schools. But it's very important to them when they choose a place to live. So we want to interface with school district, flood control, airport, EDON, chamber, really get and solicit input so that they can be involved, and that your plan here in Sparks marries beautifully with what they're seeing and what they're doing, and that they're informed too about what the residents and constituents in Sparks want to have happen. So that'll be something that we'll pick up in the beginning of next year and work through on many, many different levels, as well as doing the Rotaries and the other kind of lunches, which again will make fun because it'll be with the infographic and instant polling there, so people can see what their voices are and what their neighbors' voices are, and we'll have kind of an instant, very quick and fast-paced snapshot of what people are feeling. So phase 1, very simple questions. This is let's put ourselves in the day of the hometown parade. We want to know, they love Sparks because. Why do you love Sparks? Tell us in a bullet or a sentence. What's your biggest concerns for 2030? The things we might hear here are congestion, affordable housing. I want to know my neighbors. What's your wish? Because we're going to be at a holiday parade, it seemed like to frame it in the question of a wish for Sparks. What do you want to see? And that from this, the other factors will fall out. Obviously, these questions don't look the most targeted for getting to policy, but it is the most targeted to find out what makes people choose the place they want to live and love and tell their friends about and bring their family to. So that's where we're starting, and the rest of the information will fall out of that. And as I mentioned before, we're going to make sure we've covered everyone's wards. We want to make sure that we have the appropriate age range that mirrors the demographics of Sparks, and we also want to know what the ethnicity is of the respondent.
So really the gist of what we're trying to relay today is that we're approaching this really in an engaging and an interactive way, and it's not just about us attending meetings and being there. It's really about engaging people where they live, where they work, where they play, and making them feel like they have a voice and that they are being heard. At that, we're going to open it up to questions.
Questions for the lady. Charlene, maybe.
Thank you, ladies, for being here. I'm excited because I'm all about creative. I'm left-handed, right-brained. With creative and fun is great because I think people get excited about that and they want to participate. I did have a question on the champions.
Yeah.
What kind of time commitment, if we've got people in mind and we're asking them to serve in that committee, what kind of time commitment? Because that'll be the first question we get.
Yes. So we're asking if they would be available to meet with us between 4 and 6 times between now and the end of next summer. They will basically be a meeting that's 45 minutes to an hour, and mostly that is to be able to kind of get everyone excited and use those meetings to generate action. But really, we'll be talking to everyone more as individuals about the networks that they can bring online, and so it's not time intensive; it's connector intensive, I guess is the right answer.
And it's really about providing the tools to those champions. So again, yes, there will be a handful of meetings, but we'll be working directly with them and giving them the tools to reach their networks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Reddy?
Just wanted to add on your list of places where people gather, to just have it on the top of mind is, I think, for Sparks athletic fields.
Absolutely.
Just in general. So I'm hoping that that's a big part of your prioritizing.
It is.
Great.
Thank you, and yes.
Golden Eagle, maybe?
Golden Eagle, but
Everywhere.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
very
Good luck.
much.
We're looking forward to it. Okay, let's move on to consent items. Anybody want to pull a consent item 8.1 through 8.7? Mr. Schmidt?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent items 8.1 through 8.7.
Go second. Ms. Reddy?
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilman Schmidt, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve consent items 8.1 through 8.7. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to 9.1, consideration and possible approval of a contract to A&K Construction for the La Posada Ditch Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $322,000. Mr. Hummel.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Martini, members of council. For the record, Andy Hummel, utility manager for the city of Sparks. This item is consideration of a construction contract with A&K to repair a section of ditch that was damaged during thunderstorms of June of 2013. Basically, water came in from the north side of La Posada, got underneath the channel lining, buckled it, broke it up to the point where we really can't repair it in place. Got about 875 feet of lining in there that we need to remove and replace, generally located just north of La Posada, between Spanish Trail and Benedict Drive. Looked at several options to fix this, replace it as it was. Looking same thing, riprap, some type of concrete or gabion boxes. We ultimately picked concrete, essentially a 3-sided box or rectangular section they could do, or the gabions, which are basically a rock-filled wire mesh box. So we sent it out to bid, received 9 bids. 2 of the contractors picked the concrete option, came in about double what the gabions came in at. The remaining 7 did the gabions. A&K was the lowest at $322,000. With that, entertain any questions.
Questions for Andy? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Andy. The water got underneath the lining. Will it be possible for water still get underneath the lining even though we're redoing it?
Yeah, that possibility is still there. One of the reasons that we really liked the gabion option, these are basically they're 3 foot by 3 foot wide, 6 foot long basket filled with rock. They're heavy. If it does undermine them a little, they'll move with it. So with the bottom of it, we're doing ones that are called a mattress. They literally, once they're filled, look like a king-size mattress. And if it does get through that rock with enough velocity to undermine it, they just settle a little bit and keep doing their job.
What was the difference in price instead of using concrete?
The concrete, the lowest bid we received was Gearhart and Berry, came in at $650,000, so a pretty substantial difference.
Okay.
And we made, full note that no preference to either option, lowest price wins.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions? Looking for a motion? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the contract A&K construction for La Posada ditch rehabilitation project in the amount of $322,000.
Ms. Bybee.
Second.
With a motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Ms. Bybee to approve agenda item 9.1. Any further discussion? See none, please vote. I'm going to try that again. Please display. Thank you. Passes unanimously. 9.2 is a first reading of Bill number 2697, a general ordinance to rezone a property from PO, Professional Office, to MUD, Mixed Use District, for a site approximately .04 acres in size located at 1040 El Rancho Drive. Gosh. For my English-speaking friends, that would be El Rancho Drive.
This is a first reading for Bill number 2697, a general ordinance rezoning real property owned by Patricia A. Swigert, LLC, from PO Professional Office to MUD Mixed Use District on a site totaling .4 acres in a size located at 1040 El Rancho Drive, Sparks, Nevada, and providing other matters properly relating thereto.
Agenda item 9.2 is a first reading. This is a first reading of Bill number 2697. The public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular City Council meeting on Monday, November 23rd, 2015. 9.3, first reading of Bill number 2698. Go ahead.
This is the first reading of Bill number 2698, a general ordinance providing for the annexation of certain lands to the City of Sparks, a site approximately 5 acres in size owned by Red Hawk Land Company, located at 6500 Spanish Springs Drive, Sparks, Nevada, and providing other matters properly relating thereto.
This is the first reading of Bill number 2698. The public hearing and second reading of this bill will be conducted at the regular City Council meeting on Monday, November 23rd, 2015. Okay, let's move on to 9.4, consideration possible direction to the city manager to initiate and amendment to the Title 15 of the Sparks Municipal Code to remove the requirement for a certificate of qualification for any person who labors at the trade of plumbing or electrician in the city of Sparks.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martini, members of the council. John Martini, here is your Assistant Community Services Director. At the October 26th City Council meeting last, Mayor Martini requested that staff take a look at Title 15 of the Sparks Municipal Code for language requiring certificates of qualification for electricians and plumbers. Staff did review Title 15. We did find that Title 15, specifically sections 1505.115, point 1 through, I believe, point 4, do speak to this, and specifically there is a statement that it is unlawful for any person to labor at the trade of plumbing or trade of electrician in the city of Sparks without first having had issued him a valid certificate of qualification. Sections 115.2 through 115.4 do detail a method for applying for their certificate of qualification, sets the fees for the qualification, and allow for issuance of certificates by the Sparks building official if substantiating evidence of qualification is provided by the applicant. It also allows our building official to accept qualification from other governmental agencies. In interviewing staff, and looking through the procedures, we determined that this first came to the code via Ordinance 1760 in 1992. Your current staff, for the most part, was not around then. I wasn't here yet. Our current building official was not as well. To our knowledge, we have not, as either a building and safety division or a building department, enforced this section of the code. It is staff's opinion that in the 23 years of its existence that it hasn't been needed. I will let the council know that when a contractor or an applicant applies for a building permit, the building permit is reviewed per the code, international building codes or some of the other codes we've applied to. When the building permit is issued, that becomes the plans and specifications for the project. Our building inspectors inspect to that code to what was approved with the building permit. It is in my opinion, a strange place for us to be in, where we are asking to certify the qualifications of labor. So I am perplexed as to what may have been going on in 1992 that brought this to the code. It does still exist in the code, and staff is of the opinion it should be removed, should you agree. That's all I have, and I'm available if you have questions.
Okay. I'll kind of speak first to it, John. What you said, it's not been used, it's not necessary, I don't think. It's been a big issue over in Reno, and I thought I'd bring it to our council to see what their thoughts were. Look, again, I don't think it's something that we need to have in there. Could be a detriment to the development community, and that's why I brought it forward. Someone talked to me about it and said this is not good, could be very detrimental to development, which is coming on the way. So, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. John, this was put on the books in 1992.
Correct.
Hasn't been enforced in the last 23 years, which is since 1992. Have we had any problems with any of our projects not being done to code?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Comments from the council?
John, on that same note, as far as issues that we've had, do we know of any construction defect claims that have been made, given, maybe not now because we haven't been building, but in the past, if we have not been using, demanding the certification, have there been, can we go back through the city of Sparks, and were there construction defects that might have been a result of there not being qualified labor?
To my knowledge, none.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, all the questions are being asked. Is there not a government agency responsible for all that today?
For certifying of electricians and plumbing?
Talking about construction defects, talking about that kind of, isn't there a government agency that's in charge of all that?
I believe it would be the state of Nevada.
The State Contractors Board?
Among others, yes.
All that, they handle all that stuff. Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Ms. Ratty, I'm sorry you got blown off there. I don't know why. I didn't do it. Trust me, just because you're the only Democrat here, I didn't.
So
I didn't do that on purpose.
I do have a couple questions, a clarifying question, actually. We keep talking about certifying plumbers and electricians. And what I was able to read, it's not asking us to certify them. It is asking that they present certification. Is that correct? Are we in the certifying role, or are we verifying that they have certification from somebody else?
I think, again, in my opinion, Doug Thornley's here, if we need another one. In the code, I think one could argue that our building official could do the certification as well.
Mr. Thornley.
Depends on what you think substantiating evidence means. So if you think substantiating evidence means a certification from a third party, like you'd see from ABC, then yes, it would be certification from a third party, but it would be accepted as sufficient by our building official.
written, it could be interpreted either way.
Yes.
And so because we've never enforced it, we've never put in any process or procedure that really defines what that looks like for us.
That's correct.
Is that fair? Okay, thank you.
Okay, question, anyone else? Okay, I'll open up the public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to speak under public comment, we have a card to fill out over here at the clerk's desk, and then you'll be called up one by one. So, Tom Abreu, is that right? Tony, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, Tony was easy, Abreu was the one that was, who couldn't read, good job.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for your time and consideration in this issue. My name, for the record, is Tony Abreu. I'm with KDH Builders and Genuine Communities. And I just want to thank you and let you know that I support the removal and applaud the city's desire to remove this unnecessary and burdensome requirement in the code. Licensed plumbers and electricians have already met all the state, local, and contractor board requirements and are well qualified to do their jobs and to train their own people. Requiring additional certification just adds unnecessary bureaucracy and hurdles in an already highly regulated industry, which will cost more jobs and impede the progress of meeting demand of the housing. Also, the cost for these certifications alone is very expensive. Some estimates are as high as $12,000 per employee over the 4 to 5 year training period that's paid by the employer, and that doesn't count dues if they're in a union. So I just want to make sure you guys are all aware of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tony. Next up is Chad. Is it Kay?
Electric. It's a Sparks-owned business, family-owned business, 42 years. We do all residential, new homes, and new apartment communities. I'm in favor of removing 9.4. We are responsible for over 21,000 units in Reno and Sparks that we have done wiring on. We self-train our employees. I have 92 employees working right now. I'm considered to be the biggest electrical contractor in Reno and Sparks doing residential right now. Half of my workforce is Hispanic, and they say we need 9,000 new units in the next 5 years. So if we're going to pull that off, we're going to have to use every single person that we have. And we're going to have to add to the workforce if we're going to come up with this many new homes and this apartments to feed this growing economy. So please take this into consideration when you guys are thinking about this 9.4. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chad. Don Tatro.
My name is Don Tatro. I'm with Builders Association of Northern Nevada. My reason for addressing the council today is to state our appreciation of the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, our members, and myself for your leadership on removing certain sections of Title 15 relating to the apprenticeship journeyman requirements. We appreciate the fact that Sparks staff and City Council is embracing the region's growth opportunities by putting policies in place that will improve the region and eliminating policies that are ineffective or have the potential to negatively impact businesses or residents of Sparks. Those in opposition to the removal of this apprenticeship journeyman requirement will give many opinions, but the facts remain that no correlation of safety or quality can be made between apprentice or non-apprentice work or union or non-union work. Enforcement of the building codes is the equalizer for quality assurance and is the responsibility for the city. Enforcing job titles is not. Punishing a small company because they didn't choose the business matrix of organized labor is not the role of the city of Sparks. That is the role of business managers and owners. The potential harm of requiring apprenticeship and journeyman requirement job titles is far greater than the opinions of what good it will do. By limiting jobs to those without high school diplomas or GEDs is limiting the opportunity to be a plumber or an electrician for nearly 22% of the construction workforce in Nevada. We have heard about the code and statements on its complexity, but that is why inspections are required by the city. And let's not complicate the job of inspectors by requiring them to check and see employee job titles rather than the work. Contractors must have a license. Everyone is OSHA safety certified. Permits are issued on specified plans, and inspectors ensure the work is done properly. So, with that being said, let's continue to work with the council has started and focus our energy on building a better community, planning for growth, and making sure we maintain our competitive edge for those looking to build a better future for their family, company, and community, rather than focusing on job titles and union labor definitions. Thanks.
Thank you, Don. Jay Witt.
Jay Witt, Silverwing Development. Well, I would actually rather start my discussion with a lively discussion regarding the earlier gentleman on the interpretation of the Constitution and the Establishment Clause. I'm relegated today to talk about item 9.4. We have Silverwing Development has been in business for 29 years as a general contractor. We have operated in 16 municipalities in the state of California, 3 in Nevada, and the metropolitan Dallas, Texas area. We have never been encumbered by a labor ordinance as overreaching as the one you're looking to repeal. We have safeguards that are built into our process that have allowed us never in 29 years to have any sort of safety violation. With regard to quality, obviously the fact that I'm sitting here today after 29 years means obviously we know what we're doing on quality. I'm happy to go through the specifics of each of those at a later time when I'm not so time restricted. With regard to the future, you all know where we've been in the last downturn. This area was number 1 in the country as far as peak to trough reduction in home values, 62%. During the last number of years, the governor's office in EDON has worked darn hard to diversify the economy and to allow us an opportunity to regain the momentum that we should as a community. To do that will require the estimation right now over the next 5 years is about approximately 24,000 housing units and about 29 million square feet of industrial, retail, and office. Right now there's with regard to the plumbers, there are 480 plumbers. To hit that number in the next 5 years as far as generating what is needed, we need 850. There are 710 electricians in the area. We need to go up to 1,200. For us to be looking at this forward and say, gee, let's go ahead and obliterate a good chunk of our labor force, which is already stretched, is absolutely lunacy. I can tell you we've done an internal in-house review of this. Typical development margin is 10% profit on gross costs. We would lose approximately 7% of that due to construction delays and increased costs on those 2 trades. That would leave us with a 3% gross margin. A 3% gross margin is completely unfinanceable, and the only growth you would see would be the folks that are already pregnant with growth and activity here. So I wholeheartedly endorse the concept of repealing this overreaching, antiquated law that's never been enforced, and I certainly welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Okay. Dale Lowry.
Dale Lowry again. Sorry I didn't get done earlier, but there's a few things I'd like to add with my statement. You know, the industry itself in plumbing and electrical deal with life safety issues. We're not just talking about for those employees, we're talking about contamination of water, we're talking about blowing up buildings with gas, we're talking about electrical causing fires. Yes, We haven't had any problems in the last few years, but we haven't had a lot of construction in the last few years either. Over the years, D&D Plumbing, we're a non-union company, as I stated before. We've been involved with the Associated Builders and Contractors with our apprenticeship programs, and we have both plumbing and electrical. With that said, I believe in a trained workforce, and I believe that you're going to lower the bar here rather than organizing some aspects of it to work with the industry of what it should be and raising the bar. So yes, we're going to be faced with a lot of need for construction workers. We're just going to go down on the street and pick them up, I think. That's what it sounds like. We're going to keep the wages low, and that's what it's going to do. The wages have been, and we can talk about prevailing wage versus non-prevailing wage, but this is not an issue here. All this is going to do is drive the wages down, maintain the fact that there's another possibility of a big turn of events of having construction defects again. And I can't believe we didn't have any construction defects, because I know of a few people involved in lawsuits and projects here in Sparks. I was involved in 2, and not in Sparks, but 2, and I know how you can be just named and be having to defend yourself. That's not a good thing. And we fought long and hard in the legislature to get that cleaned up. And I think we're going to be making a step backwards if we don't get in tune with this. Like I said, Nevada is one of only 1 or 2 western states that does not license plumbers and electricians. We license cosmetologists, barbers, and here we're not licensing plumbers and electricians. And I said earlier, I sat on the Nevada Board of Plumbing Examiners, and it's made up of members of both North and South who set up this licensing process for plumbers. The electricians have something very similar to take the load off of the city of Reno so that they didn't have to do this licensing. Maybe this is something the city of Sparks should consider, a workshop talking about this, ways to improve the process of licensing of these particular trades. They aren't just any old construction trade. Plumbers and electricians are specialty trades. There's no question about it. And they involve a lot of training. And if you look at the size of the code books, you'll realize it. If a plumber doesn't know that code, I don't know how he can be out there in the field doing it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dale. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council. Close to public hearing, bring it back to council for action. I have a letter from, or an email from Craig Rowe. He's with Tanimura Construction. And he says, Tanimura Construction, along with Lennar Homes, De Loretto Homes, Toll Brothers, Desert Wind Homes, Ryder Homes, Basin Street Properties, and Genuine Communities collectively, and the Builders Association of Northern Nevada separately, among numerous local non-union shops for electricians and plumbers, are aggressively opposing this new ordinance proposed by Mr. McKenzie. Furthermore, we are all in support of your efforts to remove Title 15 requiring your city to follow that. We all strongly believe that this move to put additional standards on electricians and plumbers doing business in our community is unwanted and not based on any fact or issues we can determine, and appears to be orchestrated by unions for their potential benefit. Title 15, as we all know, both of the city of Sparks and the city of Reno are about to experience extreme population growth not ever seen before due to the strong employment growth, Tesla factor, about to hit our community. It is going to be extremely hard for the builders and subcontractors in our community who are currently extremely short on manpower to support the housing needs required to support this explosive growth. Thank you. Okay. Questions? Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I want to make one statement.
Go ahead.
Realize we're not going to make a decision today whether this is going to pass or not. All we're doing is making a decision whether we're going to have our staff write up an ordinance to remove this from Title 15, and then it'll come at a later date if we do that. So we're not going to make any votes. We're not going to do any votes today to get it off the books. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to emphasize that fact. This is just a direction to staff to go ahead and start the process, that those meetings and then public input and all will happen as we go through the process on it. So thank you, Mayor, for that. I've spent 40 years as a contractor licensed in 3 different states, and everything from underground utility work to roads, commercial buildings, to residential, and many of those years in northern Nevada. And I never knew this. I pulled hundreds of permits for the city of Sparks. I never knew we even had this code. So I think that falls to some of the very beginning of this issue, is that if there's laws on the books, if you look at city laws, we have our title, and you look at state, it starts to fill up half this desk, and you look at federal, and it fills up this entire room on things that nobody even looks at. There's a law somebody put on the books a long time ago, and I think we do ourselves a great disservice of not looking at these things, at least looking at it, is it appropriate for today, or is it not appropriate? And I think we're doing the right thing by looking at it to say whether it's appropriate. Part of my concern, and this is from 40 years of being in the business, it didn't matter who was on my job sites. I have licensed subcontractors that were licensed by the state contractor boards to be there, and whoever they hired to do the job, framers that we would hire on site. There was only one person that was ultimately responsible for that, and that was me. Didn't matter if that contractor had a certificate that they were a journeyman plumber, a journeyman electrician. Anything that goes wrong with that job never went back to the employee. Never goes back to the employee. It always goes back to the owner of the companies that are doing business and the one who did the hiring in the very first place. And I think that we really cross lines when we start telling companies that you have to go out and hire employees with these certificates, but you can't hold those employees responsible for the work they do. The owner is ultimately responsible. So I think in the state of Nevada, as most states, we have the State Contractors Board. They're in charge of licensing companies. If you don't hire good people and get your job done, you're not going to stay in business anywhere, whether this state or wherever. And I think we need to really take a serious look at this and say, are we overreaching our own boundaries as a city? And are we trying to do things that another government agency is ultimately responsible for to do that? So I'm going to support staff's taking the time to look at this, and everybody will be back at this table again. It's not going to go away. It just doesn't happen today. We're going to be back. So I'm in support of taking a look at this and seeing what we really should have on the books.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Lawson.
Just in light of being fair too, when this comes back before us, I'd like to hear from both sides. Just
all they had to do was show up. You could hear from both sides today.
I understand, but I think when it comes back, I'd like to have more organized. I'd like to hear from both sides, because I kind of think that my first blush is like the feral cat ordinance. It's a solution looking for a problem. But
all right,
that
turn
may
his
not be the
microphone
case. But I want to make sure that we explore all sides of this.
Feral cats, come on. Yeah, and I agree, Ed, but it's up to both sides to be here to make their pitch. It's not up to us to make them or ask them to come here. So that's Randy.
Well, typically when we're initiating an ordinance process, staff will do some work in terms of making sure that there's an opportunity for stakeholders to participate. And so I'm assuming that by initiating that today, that's part of it, that we'll be announcing to relevant groups that this is something that we're working on because we're initiating an ordinance. I'm going to be supporting the initiating of the ordinance today because my favorite mayor has asked for this. But honestly, I need to know a little bit more about it. This is not an issue that I'm sufficiently educated enough to know what the right thing to do is. And so I look forward to the process, again, to be able to understand what's best for the city.
And I think that's what it's all about. Take a look at it. If we don't think it's the right thing to do, then we can turn it down. So, Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, before a
Sorry,
motion,
go
I
ahead.
have a question based on that comment. If you feel we need to hold public workshops with stakeholders, could you make that part of your motion, if that's the direction you're going in?
Have enough time to have public workshop?
It will add time, but we can certainly accommodate it if that is the council's desire.
Let me hear from the council. What do you think? Workshops?
No, I don't think they need them.
Councilman Lawson, to get a workshop together without the workshop, I will propose an ordinance change, first reading by bill at your next council meeting.
We add the workshop?
We will be into the first quarter of next year, post-January. We're going into the holiday season. Certainly, if we're going to hold workshops, we want all the stakeholders there, and that will take some time to organize and build a forum.
Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be more than happy to make a motion to ask staff to come back in 2 weeks with a first reading to.
Do we have a second?
I didn't hear the motion.
Yes, the motion was to go ahead and have staff come back in 2 weeks with the first reading for the motion to go ahead and move this off from the ordinance, city ordinance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Smith, to have this on the next council meeting night, is what I'm hearing. Ms. Ratty.
So, again, I can support that. I understand the desire to move it along. At the same time, I know we have a readily available list of ABC, BAN, all the relative folks who regularly come to, I'm sure the same list that the wonderful RAD strategy folks who were here earlier today. Can we just at least get a notice out that it's going to be on the agenda it's a first reading next time? We're really talking about a month's notice for the second reading, so that just folks know that it was happening, so that then the council meeting can become the public forum where folks like me can have some help getting an education.
Outreach for us.
Yeah, we probably have
for the second. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll concur with that. I think that's a good
Okay.
idea to get those notifications.
I'm sure we have a email list and stuff, John, we can get people notified without spending $15 million. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, we have a closed door session, Steve?
No, sir.
Great. Comments from the public? Anyone from the public want to speak under comments from the public? Okay, comments from the city council and city manager, Mr. Driscoll.
Mr. Mayor, we're coming into the holiday season, has been mentioned a couple of times, and for the last couple of years, we typically have not had a second meeting in December. In this case, that would be on December 28th, which would be the Monday after the holiday weekend. So unless there's objection, we'll consider that meeting to be canceled. That would require us to move redevelopment meeting, all that business to the meeting on December 14th. So unless I have objection, we'll proceed with canceling the 28th and moving the redevelopment to the 14th of December.
How soon do you need to know?
Right now, it'd be great, but I can certainly, it's okay to know that by our next meeting.
Okay. So if you have a problem with it by the next meeting, let us know.
I just want to make sure I got it. So you're planning on canceling the 28th and having the redevelopment meeting on the 14th?
Yeah, we'd cancel both meetings on the 28th, and then because we have a meeting a month for redevelopment, we would move it to the 14th and handle the business there.
So any objections? Okay,
I'm not hearing any, so we'll consider that to be
Go for
on what
it.
our calendar looks like. Thank you.
Any other announcements or? Okay, seeing no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.